Hello, good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain.
Well, it's a beautiful Monday morning here in Lagos. You're welcome. I'm Kayode Okikelu.
Yes, indeed. Rise against the odds and make this week count. I'm Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television.
I hope the power grid will let you do that.
The power grid, right? You know, how many times has the power grid collapsed just in space of few months? I can't count anymore. And for some people, they think, well, it really doesn't change anything anyway. There's epileptic power supply in any case, so whether it collapses or not, it's the same thing. But for some others who've had maybe better power supply, it might have affected you a bit, especially in the past, 2 to 3 days, really. But hearing that this has collapsed yet again, don't forget the Minister of Power saying that, well, we're working so that this will not happen again. So what exactly is wrong with the power sector?
Well, somebody needs to be telling the nation the truth. Yeah. You know, so if they're not used to that, they have to, because this kind of scenarios always show their hands. But at the end of the day, you just wonder. Well, a good thing, I guess, I reckon, that, you know, electioneering process has started. So there'll be many questions to ask of these chaps, these politicians who say they are dying to serve you all out there. So who knows? We'll see how that turns out. But this morning, we've got Mr. Richard Mammah. He is the editor-in-chief and publisher of The Difference. He used to be the editor of Business Hallmark. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, we'll take a look at some of the dailies and see what they highlight. We'll start with Daily Times. They are focusing on democracy. Yesterday, the president gave his Democracy Day speech, and wow, the shortest, what a speech it was. I mean, people went in to get a cup of coffee, trying to get themselves set, you know, taking their time, and they thought it was going to be a marathon, and before you know what's happening, bam, it's all over, and they're like, whoa, did I just miss that? Well, that's how it is. And it happened to be the president's very last Democracy Day speech. So very interesting. We'll get to hear people's perspective later. But look at the Daily Times this morning. Democracy Day. Buhari vows to ensure transparent presidential election transition. Says citizens' right to choose leaders will be preserved, protected. Reiterates commitment to protecting Nigerians from enemies. The power grid is becoming our enemy now, so we hope that something can be done. I live daily with grief, worry for all victims, prisoners of terrorists. What say you on this?
I think two things jump at me from that. The first is that the president has done the Democracy Day address as has become the custom now. So we have that to deal with. Successive presidents hopefully would continue with the tradition. And the fact that he made promises, that's in terms of the content of the speech, he made promises ensuring transparent, credible elections, ensuring, you know, security, and trying to show concern that, hey, you are not the only ones hurting. It also hurts me, you know. I think I find from that end perspective a sense of trying to reflect some empathy with the people as regards what, you know, the crisis they are facing. But it's also paradoxical that on the same day, fresh reports were also coming out of new victims in Benue and elsewhere, you know, as it were. And so the promises in the morning and then the actualities, you know, in the same day, you know, speak to the fact that we have not hit the nail on the head. We've got to deal with this.
Do you agree with, you know, some of those who think that it came across to them as though the president didn't really want to make this speech, but I mean, given how brief it was, he didn't speak about democratic, you know, all of those processes, because he's had a battle with the National Assembly, and Nigerians too. We've had serious back and forth between National Assembly, the president, what Nigerians want, the process of democracy. Are we getting better than we were some time ago, 30 years on? So does that in any way make any sense whatsoever?
No, I think I also took note of the brevity of the speech. I had to read through several times. I got the hard copy and I had to read through several times to be sure whether he had even started making the speech by the time he ended. You know, because substantially, it promised nothing. Speeches are made to give the people something, to advance conversations that are ongoing in the
But
politics.
his last one, was he supposed to promise something?
Yes, if the more reason, because it's legacy building. What will you be remembered for? You know, what will you be remembered for? That's what it is. You will be remembered for your soundbite. That is from a media perspective. You also be remembered for your action, what you do, what you give, what you deliver. And if you don't have much that you have done, then you'd better have much that you have said.
And even if he didn't have to promise anything, it was a Democracy Day speech. So do you think he should have captured some progress report on how far we have come in our democracy?
I think so. More so when we are faced with an election that is definitely definitive. Now, look at the process of building to the primaries. Look at the extension that INEC had given. Look at the crowds, you know, that are milling out to vote. So these elections, you know, have remind us of some of the high moments of the nation. We're talking about December 1, 1960.
He said this one will be transparent, as though he says, look, I'm in a hurry, but the elections, it will be transparent. Don't worry about it.
The devil is in the details. You've got to give us something more to hold on to, because transparent is one word, you know, one English word. And
how many were you looking for?
You can stretch it in many dimensions.
You know, I find this quite interesting.
Give me some bites.
Well, yes, so the bites come and people say, well, too much bites, with little bite, as it were. There's so much to talk about, but people say on the ground they rarely see anything. And now this time the president thought, you know what, I don't want to give you too much bites anyway, so let me give you a little bit. But still, it looks like people wanted something way more. But looking at speeches that we've seen over time, and we recall the president's first speech when he said that I belong to everyone and I belong to no one. I'm just paraphrasing. I imagine that was what was said. And, you know, that went far enough. But over time, it would seem as though the significance or the bites from speeches have dropped. So should we really be looking at the speech and how much it offers, or just focus on what's on ground, the actualities, as you said?
No, you do have a point. If we focus on what's on ground, the truth actually is, you know, we started this morning with the power grid. That's what is on ground. You know, you struggle to get a pressed shirt to come out, you know, in the streets.
You can say that again.
you know, those are the actualities. They are not comforting.
Thank God nobody will know this is not pressed. I had to put a jacket on top of it, but
Chamberlain
what kind of brother do?
I know.
Chamberlain noted, and you have also rightly noted, the brevity of that speech. And I also noted that Mr. President said twice that this is my last Democracy Day speech. Did you get a sense that Mr. President is perhaps overwhelmed and in a hurry to hand over the reins of power?
I think that you may say that twice, because I watched the primaries of the ruling party, and I also noticed that there was a certain quietness in the entire process, you know, from his side. You know, after all the build-up, I want to anoint my candidate and give me some chance, and all the frenzy that went into the process. I think it's possible, if you do a psychoanalytic reading, to say that, hey, it seems like Baba is tired, you know. He's entitled to being tired, but he has a nation to run.
But
that's the
wait,
contract.
Are we forgetting that the president did this 4 times before he won? He really wanted this position. Now how can we say now he's tired?
Tired.
Okay.
He wanted it so badly.
If you're not tired, you should be reinventing. Because you know, when you do the marathon, right? When you do the marathon or you do the relays, you discover that by the time you get to the 3rd lap of the relays, for example, the guy who is taking the 4th, they usually reserve about the strongest guy to take the 4th.
Well, it's only one guy taking all the laps this time around, so I mean...
And so we use the marathon, because you notice that when the marathon begins, you know, you don't find the front runner, you know, usually amongst the hustlers. But when you get to the last 3, you know, turns, as it were, you find that the front runner, who has been pacing himself, now moves to finish strong.
I wonder how...
This is the time to finish strong.
I wonder how this will apply for the next general elections, because this is going to be one of the longest campaign season. So if there's anyone who you think is a front runner now, think again. Maybe there's somebody making the pace somewhere behind the scenes.
What an interpretation.
You never can tell.
You make this spot on.
A very interesting one. But take a look at the Guardian newspaper next. Of course, the paper focuses on Democracy Day as well, but with a twist, as it were. Emulate Abiola, save Nigeria's democracy. So that's in quotes. I imagine that's being quoted from someone. But let's see if the writers will explain this. Afenifere Soyinka, Adams bemoan state of economy, governance 23 years after democracy. So I think this is for 1999, not for the June 12, 93. Sanwo-Olu, sacrifices of June 12 responsible for today's democracy. Implement Abiola's manifesto. Family tells FG. PDP tasks Buhari, APC on promotion of civil rule. Yakasai, Nigeria needs to sit up, catch up with Malaysia, Indonesia. You know, we've heard that quite a lot, and you just wonder, and this, it's now a marathon, or is it a sprint now? We have so much to catch up. But hey, I guess we'll get there. But I'd like you to speak to this one. It's been on and on for a while now. It looks like that's the next big conversation. 2023, Muslim ticket recipe for crisis. Can insists. I know first we dealt with zoning. You know, it's time for the north, time for the south. No, it's southeast. It's north central. In fact, it is northeast. And we went on and on about that for a while. But it looks as though all that was thrown away, it would seem. But now we're at this crossroad. Muslim ticket. Religion, again, when it comes to politics. What's your take on this?
You know, I think you can use the point, you know, this point to describe it, which is that if you cover up a pot of boiling water, you know, it does not say it's not boiling, right? Because
I tried it burnt my tongue.
At the end of the day, you know, the vapor, the heat, and all of that would come out. I think what has happened is that Nigeria was negotiated from the beginning, and the faults, the distortions in the negotiations are those that are jumping at us now, you know, because we try to be smarter than ourselves. You know, Nigeria was negotiated as a federation. A federation implies that it's a diverse, you know, arrangement. You know, it's an arrangement to suit a diverse set of people. But we kept, you know, cornering to the unitary post. You know, now the insistence is coming, return to a federation. Because if you don't get back to a federation, I saw this quote by Obafemi some time ago, and says that even if you find some states that are supposed to be federations, that are not federations, that are not running proper federal systems, a matter of time, they will crash. You know, and he was making that reference in relation to the Soviet Union and a few of the other states, you know, that in themselves, you know, have gone into difficulties in
so
that
if
sense.
you could link this, so you're talking about federation, as
yes,
it were, but this conversation on religion, how does that link up? Are you saying if we go back to federative units, then this talk about religion or ethnicity won't play as much role in our political conversation? Or what exactly? How do you link them?
That's the point. You see, the reason why Muslim zoning and all those issues are coming again and again is because they were there at the beginning and they were supposed to be properly accommodated in the mix. You know, we tried dodging.
So you're saying you don't agree with this talk about either Muslim ticket, or you don't even mind as far as they're competent?
No. I don't even take the word competent. There's enough competence in every local government in this country. So I think we should not even bring the word competence into the discussion of leadership. We should talk about inclusiveness. There are women, there are young people, there are ethnicities, there are religions in Nigeria. You know, when you start saying, forget about them, no. Let us put our differences on the table and accommodate them in a systemic order. Right, in a systemic order. It doesn't take away anything from us. It's about honesty. It's the fact that there are Muslims in Nigeria and they are predominant in certain parts of the country. There are Christians in Nigeria, they are predominant in certain parts of the country. There are young people across Nigeria, there are women across Nigeria, and Nigeria must be an inclusive state that works for all. So that means that if you've got, for me, my best model is the Swiss model. Yeah. It's the Swiss model, right? Take your turn, shift. Take your turn, shift.
So you have
take your turn,
presidents
shift.
in waiting.
Presidents in waiting. So the country keeps running because we're actually...
And they're all elected at the same time.
At the same time. So we're actually just, you know, burning hot hair by refusing to be practical. The founding fathers gave us a federation, a proper federation. Return to a proper federation, and 90% of this challenge is over.
And are you noting that in contradiction to what we had in 2014, this time around, you know, there's some interests that are passing it, underscoring it as okay that it can pass this time around. What interest is it trying to suit?
No, I think there's mischief. If you say it's okay, right, you've got to give me the parameters. Because between 2014, between MKO in 93, between 2014 and now, right, the structures, the structural engine of this federation has spread further apart. That's the reality on the ground. You know, Benue Kenyans, who is Kenyan in Benue? You know, the Boko Haram, the ISIS, the ISWAP, and all the other tendencies, where are they coming from? You know, when you now start talking about secessionists, you know, of that strength, they are being propelled by the fact that there's not enough adequate representation. So the biggest challenge of Nigeria is to represent all. Put us all in the room, right? You take your piece, you take your piece. And that means you need to loosen up. You need to loosen up in the sense that at the regional, you know, regional or zonal levels, as you call it, put a lot of it. Why does somebody have to give me power from Zungeru? When I live in Ogun State or in Lagos State, why do I have to wait for a grid that, you know, keeps dropping? No. Give me my mini grid in my square system, right? Everyone has his mini grid and everybody goes happy, you know, in that sense.
Sounds like we need a new bridge without grid, huh?
So let's see if the Daily Trust has something about representation this morning as we flip. The big story here says, Democracy Day, Nigerians seek more dividends. The riders go thus: we must get it right in 2023. That's attributed to governors. Don't use religion, ethnicity for campaign, CDD tells politicians. Abiodun Fintiri free 46 inmates. That's in the spirit of Democracy Day. Now let's go further down to the bottom strip. Terrorists killed 55 ironmongers in 3 weeks. That's coming from the police. How we thwarted plans to bomb Abuja, Kano, defense chief. Mixed reactions as Owo indigene links attack to missed target. And that's what I want you to speak to. Looks like there's some story coming out from Owo about the June the 5th massacre. Is this plausible?
I really don't know. You know, security matters are first professional matters. You know, they touch everybody, but they are first professional matters. You know, by the time we had that National Council of State or National Council on Security, you know, come out to make those statements and start asking us to start looking for ISWAP, you know, as the source of, you know, that problem, it was problematic for me because you were foreclosing, you know, other possibilities, you know. Because you've got to, when you have a security crisis, until you start getting suspects, until you start getting very serious, you know, details, we can't pinpoint that this is it, because criminals themselves don't run on a straight route. So I think that we need to do something about ensuring that before information of a security nature comes from the agencies that are entrusted to do that professionally, they should be thorough. They should be free from politics, they should be free from conjectures, and they should be plausible, acceptable, best practices. And if we need help, we should ask for help. Because many of these details are not adding up. You get the story that says, oh, they may have caught some of the suspects. You get this other story that says, no, they have not caught any of the suspects. But part of the reason why the rumor mills are moving on is because you are not also getting, you know, fresh, reliable information. Why don't you brief us on a daily basis and say, this is it, this is the progress. If there's no progress, then you talk about, you know, you have cold leads, and then you ask where you can find help to be able to resurrect those ones. So I think we may have to sit down and look again and say, our security infrastructure, how is it? How is it? Is it adequate? Is it fit for purpose?
All right, take a look at New Telegraph this morning. 2023, they're talking politics as well. Party chieftain drags Tinubu Atiku to court over funding. Once both candidates barred from election, seeks the registration of APC PDP. Interesting or what?
Interesting. Quite interesting. You know, INEC would have to go back, INEC and the nation would have to go back and deal with the issue of money in politics. It's a major issue, it's particularly when you have on the reverse side this high incidence of poverty. You know, and then you also have all the discolorations in the system.
But we saw EFCC at the primaries, APC and PDP primaries, so we expect that at least they saw some things and the investigations are on, perhaps made some arrests and all of that. Are you saying we shouldn't expect anything from that?
We watched the videos. We saw the operatives come into the center.
Yeah.
They've not spoken to us since they got there. They've not spoken to us. They didn't tell us why they went. They didn't tell us what they saw. They didn't even give us an advisory.
They obviously didn't go there to vote clearly. I'm sure they went to do their jobs, I imagine.
Right? So they did their jobs, and we've not gotten the updates.
Well,
except they are passing it to INEC for INEC to take judicial notice of.
It appears you were expecting a certain kind of update. So who knows? And then you see the same narrative. Muslim ticket will lead to chaos, says can president. And you wonder, I mean, the president, you know, they say he consistently had 12 million votes. He saw the need to do the contrary and not take a Muslim ticket. But now they're talking about this. So you wonder, do these people have 12 million votes in the kitty already, or better than that of the president to talk about this? But who knows? That's no Telegraph anyways.
Well, next up is Leadership newspaper with this one. As Buhari's administration winds down in 11 months, Nigeria still grapples with terrorism, kidnappings, killings. It's a page 4 read. 913 killed, 265 abducted in 421 attacks last month. Now that's according to a report. Perhaps more details on that report will be on the inside pages. I see 30 wedding guests kidnapped in Sokoto, 11 killed in Benue. Southwest governors revisit state police to strengthen Amotekun. We have done a lot to tackle challenges defense. So I think this just captures the state of things generally in Nigeria. Just to also mention this one, don't pay lip service to credible election. PDP replies PMB. So you had the president speak, and as you would expect, the opposition, of course, spoke as well. A couple of other stories are on the front page this morning. By the way, IGP deploys DIG for AIGs, 4 helicopters for Ekiti election. By the way, I didn't see the exact figures of policemen deployed. I was looking out for that. But I think maybe the police has learned. Once you see 30-something thousand, you wonder, what happens to other places? So we didn't quite see that. But for transparency's sake, I think we should have the figures at least. I'll leave it there for the Leadership newspaper.
I wonder why they can't deploy this number to kidnappers. Catch those who are kidnapping people. Why is it always only for politics?
Politics is hot potato.
I like that description. And from Leadership newspapers, let's quickly look at Daily Independent. And Daily Independent chose a slightly different path this morning, away from politics in its big story. It says stakeholders query identity of 95% investors, directors. That's what I want you to speak to. But let's quickly look at other stories.
That's for Nigeria Air.
Nigeria Air.
Yeah.
Politicians mulling Muslim ticket, inviting chaos, can warns. And one more story from the left-hand corner. We averted catastrophic incidents in Abuja, Kano last week, attributed to military chief. Now let's go to stakeholders query identity of 95% investors, directors. You know, that's about the new national carrier that has since obtained its license. Do you think this call for transparency is in the right, regard?
No, perfectly so. You are dealing with business. And in business, and you are talking about the antecedents of the old Nigeria Airways and the fact that we have to get it better. You know, if you are going to do Nigeria Air, then you've got to put your cards on the table. And the structure is supposed to be a public-private partnership. The private sector will not take you serious if they don't have the facts on the table. You know, government can run its rings, but if you are going to call the private sector in, and if you want efficiency and if you want better outcomes, then you've got to put all the cards on the table. Ultimately, I would expect that firm would have to be listed on the stock exchange, you know, and that also means governance issues are core.
The Abuja Inquirer is talking about the area councils. So they say that it's about uneasy calm ahead of swearing in. How security report hastened process. Outgoing chairman vowed to fight on. Abuja natives warn troublemakers to stay off. So I guess it never ends. Well, there you go. That is it with a look at some of the dailies here today. Mr. Richard Mammah has taken us through some of them. He's the editor-in-chief and publisher of The Difference. He used to be the editor of Business Hallmark. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.